Welcome to the iCreateDaily podcast. I'm Leora Alderson.
And I'm Devani Alderson. We are your co-hosts on this journey of creativity and productivity.
iCreateDaily is for artists in every genre of creating, from musicians to writers, crafters to inventors, bloggers to entrepreneurs. iCreateDaily is a movement for creators serious about your art.
If you're into creating anything, this podcast is definitely for you. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Hello, everyone. Devani here with Leora, and this is the iCreateDaily podcast, episode 2, and we're joined by Cory Huff, founder of theabundantartist.com. Cory dispels the starving artist myth by helping creators build their online web platforms to sell directly to their fans, cutting out the middleman. Cory is a speaker and author of How to Sell Your Art Online and also does live workshops. So welcome, Cory. We're glad to have you on the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So how did you come to start? I mean, first of all, what a fantastic name, The Abundant Artist, and you've had your site for about 8 years now, right?
Uh-huh.
You had your site for about 8 years now? Wow. So how did you come to start this movement?
Well, it started as me just helping my friends sell their art. My first job after college was working for a little internet marketing company, and I started helping my friends sell their art using my marketing skills. And one thing kind of led to another as I was writing on my blog and interviewing artists to figure out how they make money and sharing what I had learned with other people. And that just turned into a community of artists who were excited about what we were doing. And eventually it came to the point where we were busy enough and I was helping enough people that people started asking me to teach courses. And then it got so busy that I had to quit my job. And that's kind of where we ended up.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. So are you yourself an artist? I know on your site it says that you're not a visual artist, but you are interested in photography. So are you doing any more art yourself these days?
Yeah. So I'm a performer. I have a background in theater. I do Shakespeare and stuff like that. So besides performing, I'm into photography and word art and some other stuff. So that's sort of my creative expression is mostly just spoken and written words.
And when you say word art, can you elaborate?
Oh, just like illustrated stuff. Just illustration.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. So you were a marketer, and then you basically got into this because you were filling a need, and you've succeeded at helping other artists prosper online, basically turn their passion and their hobby into a living. And is it still, is it sort of like it's not so hard, or is it still that it's a challenge and it's a long road, but yes, you can do it?
I think it's the latter. I would say that making a living as like starting any business is difficult, right? There are all kinds of challenges. If you've never run a business before, it's really hard. Most businesses fail. It's a difficult thing. But that said, it is doable, and there is sort of a well-worn path that other artists have trod. It doesn't get talked about very much because we tend to focus on the wild outliers. We focus on the artists who are, whose work is selling for $100,000 each. And we talk about like $10 million sales at Christie's and stuff like that. But for most artists, it's selling, a few $1,000s worth of art at a time, and not trying to, you're probably not going to ever sell a piece for $100,000, but that doesn't mean you can't make a great living.
Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely. And when you're helping artists, like what are the few actionable tips in terms of getting exposure online in today's market with all the different social platforms, all the different ways of creating art and sharing it with the world? What are your few recommendations for anybody really getting found online?
Getting found online is, there's a lot of other artists who are competing for attention.
Yeah.
So what I usually tell people is figure out what makes you different from other artists out there. Do some research. So if you are a wildlife artist, for example, go Google wildlife artists and look at 30, 40, 50 of them and say, how are you different from those artists? How are you the same as those artists? Where are they marketing themselves? Who are they talking to? If you live near any of them, go see their work in person, see where they're showing their work. And as you do that research, you'll start to figure out, okay, like this is where I'm different. This is where I stand out. And this is the advantages that those artists have. And these are the things that those artists are not doing. In reality, if you look at 30, 40 different artist websites, you'll start to see the patterns for what artists are doing terribly, because most websites aren't very good.
Right. Yeah.
So you can create a better website. You can create a better marketing plan, or a marketing plan that speaks to a more specific group of people, and then spend the majority of your time talking to the people that you want to sell to, or that you think are likely to buy your work.
So many times, that's a really good point. And many times I know other businesses, you hear the riches are in the niches. And so it sounds like that's pretty similar also with art, in terms of finding out what you enjoy doing and obviously what you're good at creating and producing quality, and then finding that sort of zone or lane that you can plug into that's unique from all the other people doing similar things.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was just telling somebody else about this example earlier today. My friend Matt LeBlanc, who's a painter that lives in Moncton, Canada, when he was coming on the scene as an abstract artist, when he originally started trying to figure out how to sell his work, he noticed that a lot of people were selling cheap abstract art, and a lot of people were selling very expensive abstract art in his local area. So he decided that he would make art that fit right in the middle, $500 to $1,500, right around that price range. And where other artists were showing in galleries and showing at auctions, he decided that he would set up a booth at home trade shows. So people who are first-time home buyers who are looking to decorate their home, he went and showed his work there, and that's where he got started. And he's since done a lot more, but that was sort of the beginning of his art business. And there are lots of little ways to figure out niches in the world.
So back to the website you mentioned for a minute, you've seen a lot of bad ones, and oftentimes that's one of the issues. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure. For most artists, like we have a checklist of all the things that your artist website should have. Our website is theabundantartist.com. And if you just Google like artist website checklist, you'll find it. And basically your website should have like a really good portfolio of your work. The images should be large enough that people can actually see the work and not have to like squint at a little thumbnail.
Yeah.
It should be mobile optimized. More than 50% of all traffic comes from cell phones and tablets now. And people you should have e-commerce enabled on your website. People should be able to click a button and make a purchase. If somebody has to contact you in order to ask how much something costs and then ask you how to buy it, and then they have to send you a check, or then they have to give you a credit card over the phone, it's just a lot less likely that you're going to sell the work.
Right.
So especially for inexpensive pieces, anything under like $5,000, just having e-commerce enabled on your site is super easy. It'd take you a couple of hours to get a website set up with Shopify or Squarespace and integrating with PayPal. That stuff is all pretty straightforward and easy.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And you're right. You're absolutely right. We have seen a lot of things like that where you end up actually we're in a max of Command Plus to enlarge it that way so you can see it better, which of course then is granular. But yeah.
And especially if you're a visual artist, if that's like who you are as a brand and you can't see what the art is, it makes such a big difference. And it's almost like making what's amazing about the online space is you're literally making the website your online gallery. And so when people walk into a gallery, they want to see the expansive painting. So when they open your website homepage or go to your gallery page, they want to see that.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Exactly.
Making your website is your museum, or your art gallery is actually a better term
Yeah.
when you use that. Yeah. You talk about on your site, you talk about you have a section or an article on SEO for artists. We have some online properties. We've gone from real estate investing to investing more in online properties. And so we have some websites and have been doing a deep dive over the past year in writing for SEO. And so what are you, so this is kind of a composite thought, and it has to do with artists today essentially are like many entrepreneurs, and it's almost like we have to take on all the different hats entrepreneurially to build a business. And so in the beginning we're doing it all, but if we look at it as one brick at a time, building a foundation, then that includes things like having the website and writing articles. So now we're doing our art, we have a website, and we're writing articles which we can SEO, which means search engine optimization, make titles and use keywords that people are actually searching to help us put ourselves in front of the audience. Is that where you're coming from with that? How would you elaborate on that?
Yeah, that's essentially it. Like making sure that your website page titles line up with what you want to be found for. So if you are, if you want to be a painter in Leeds, and you want people to find your work, then you might say, make sure that the title of your website, the meta title, is, Leeds oil painter, whatever your name is, right? So, and then beyond that, it's getting people to link to and talk about your website. Google, like for every website that matches a specific search query, Google looks and says, how much traffic does that website already have? How important is that website? How many other people are linking to and talking about that website? And if they can, that's how they figure out which websites to put first. So you want to get people talking about and linking to your website, which will help your SEO.
Right, definitely. So tell us a little bit about your book. How to Sell Art Online.
Yeah, the book was released last year, July 2016. That was last year. Yeah, 2016.
Yeah, right.
And the book was basically a culmination of, at that point, it was when I started writing it, it was about 6 years of experience helping artists sell their art on the internet. HarperCollins was very generous in helping me publish the book. And the book covers the basics of what you need to know in order to get your website or get your art online and start selling it. And it's really about not just what buttons to push, but how to think strategically about the internet and about the way you think and feel about your work, and realizing that you deserve to get paid for it.
So are you a writer naturally? Is that one of your talents?
Yeah, I write a lot. I do enjoy people always say, I couldn't write a book, but it was relatively straightforward and easy for me. Nonfiction books are, it's, you either know it or you don't, and you might require a little bit of extra research, but all told, I wrote the first draft of the book probably in less than 2 months.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So in the process of writing that book, what were the daily habits that you had in terms of, and I know for especially writing nonfiction, and it's the same with articles, when you come from the knowledge inside out, it's much easier to just sit down and, hammer it out. But sort of what is your process in keeping yourself creative every day?
Yeah. So when I wrote the book, like I wrote the outline while I was sitting in the audience at a conference. I was bored. I don't remember who the speaker was, but I was bored. So I just had an outline for my book. And I wrote probably about a quarter of the book over the course of a month. And then I kind of got bogged down and I got distracted by other projects. But then when I got the book deal and they agreed to publish my book, I finished the draft in about a month's time. And the way that I did that is I rented a apartment on the coast of Ireland.
Nice.
And my wife and I went there for a month, and I wrote every single morning for 4 hours before I could get up and go anywhere.
Wow.
And that was my motivation, was get up early, write for 4 hours, then go see Ireland and explore a little bit. And that was the way I got myself to do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We were just interviewing another fantasy artist who does paintings, and she also said, she's actually from Finland, and she was also talking about how those 4 hours in the morning are absolutely crucial if you're creating anything, whether you're writing a book, doing the painting, doing whatever form of art. It's that morning hour where you're the freshest that is just the most important to know. And whatever 4 hours that is in the morning for you, whether it's early or mid-morning, it's just the most important.
Right. You were living like the writer's lifestyle dream, right?
It was fun. Yeah, it was a fun thing to do.
So do you now, are you serving also authors, like fiction authors?
No, our courses and training are for visual artists, painters, and sculptors.
Okay. So do you have any experience, any knowledge of anyone who's serving fiction authors?
Oh yeah. Well, fiction authors, I know plenty of people who are helping nonfiction authors.
It's okay, but I don't want to put you on the spot.
I can't think of anybody. Yeah. That's funny. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. Like maybe Jeff Goins. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to interview Jeff Goins in early November, I think. And we have in our family fiction authors, and one published and a couple aspiring. And Devani has served as a social media marketing strategist and service firm. She has served fiction authors, and it's different. It's harder to create social content, building social content for fiction authors. And what's frustrating, and I'm sharing this even though I know you're not serving fiction authors, because I think there's still a tie-in with artists, and that is artists, and that is that there's such a proliferation of content online and art and free access to so many things that it really kind of demeans and undervalues, all the blood, sweat, and tears that can go into any creative endeavor. For like an artist, a fiction writer, spending a year writing a novel, and then to have it sell like 99 cents on Kindle, or maybe $7 or $8 on CreateSpace kind of thing, or through the publisher as a paperback. Yeah, it's really challenging, and so that's one of the things that we're kind of searching for, is how to help that tribe more. And one of the things that came to mind, and I think this ties in with visual artists too, is that corporations, are you familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk? I don't know if you follow any of his work, but he's big on helping basically industries, even large mega corporations, learn how to do social media by storytelling. And what is exciting about that for us is that ties in the possibility of story writers actually collaborating possibly with corporations to help them learn how to tell better stories, even if it evokes fiction. And then that ties in with visual artists having more opportunities to create artistic renderings for some of those stories. So it's not just stuck on the medium of printed word and paperback or Kindle, but, expanding even into potentially, the performing arts, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Do you see any, so in your performing arts, do you work with, are you doing a play right now? Are you performing right now?
Not right now, but I do frequently. I'll probably have stuff coming up soon. Yeah. Okay.
And do you work with so you don't work with screenwriters or any of that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So just visual artists then.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, what have you, besides the website, what else have you observed are some of the roadblocks to visual artists actually earning a living from their art?
It's more than anything, it's just believing that you can. And like so many artists, one, it's okay if you don't want to. Like if you don't want to sell your work, you shouldn't try to sell it because other people told you should sell it. Because it's a lot of work and there's a lot of competition and it's really hard. And it takes a long time to get to the point where you see significant money from it. And also selling art can take the joy out of it for some people. So all that said, if you really want to sell your work and you're super excited about that, then I would say surround yourself with people who are similarly striving, similarly trying to achieve and meet with those people regularly, hold each other accountable, set specific goals. And if you can do those things, like the technical how to, like what to put on a website and how to market yourself and what to do on social media, like all of that stuff you can learn, and it's just knowledge, right? Like, but the biggest problem I see with any entrepreneur is how they undermine themselves by not believing that they can achieve whatever it is they're trying to accomplish.
That's so true.
Yeah, it's such a great point. And along those lines too, it's a little bit about, or a lot about, mindset. It's, if we haven't yet achieved, our goal, or even approached it, having earned even the first dollar, for instance, from the work of art, it can be hard to imagine that it's a real possibility. So that's all the more reason, back to your point of hanging out with people who are, and who are aspiring to.
Yeah.
Because the metaphor that we used earlier, and that we use a lot, is, it's building our foundation one brick at a time. And if we are standing on an open lot, and there's no house there, it can be hard to imagine that at some point there's going to be a finished house structure, not only complete, but that you could actually go inside and live in. It can be hard to go that far. But if we start building it, the foundation, pouring the concrete, and then one day, one brick at a time, building the foundation, and then putting up the walls, it begins to literally take shape and form. But it does have to happen on the blueprint of mind first, by virtue of our attitude, our setting our vision and intent, and then implementing it. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we're really big on that, which is why we've created iCreateDaily. It's the concept and it's the practice, from people that we know and admire, like from Stephen Pressfield, Stephen King, to, the great visual artists of the time, of the ages, that it was a daily practice. It's like setting that momentum and keeping it going, and then doing it with others who are lifting us up to do, and pushing us and encouraging us to do the same thing, and not, whining or complaining about what isn't working.
Yeah.
Sure.
So do you have any, sorry, you were going to say.
Yeah, well, just to sort of punctuate both your points in terms of surrounding yourself with those types of people, right now we're seeing sort of almost an art renaissance, where people are getting back to creating all the time, being an artist, putting their work in the world. And what's cool is you're also seeing a lot of the business communities and the art communities sort of blend together, whether it's companies doing more of the artistic storytelling, or if it's the entrepreneurs that are noticing that what they create is also an art form. And I saw a great quote, I think you posted on your Instagram a while back. I was scrolling through, and it was an Andy Warhol quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but it was something about how it's like business art is the next level after you've created your art, or something like that. And that ties in a lot to just surrounding yourself with the people who have also the other skills that you're looking to acquire.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Andy Warhol was really saying, like, he's really saying that the art business is a business.
Right.
And if you're going to be an artist, you should be good at the art business.
Yes.
And he was very good. He was very wealthy in his lifetime. And, his art itself was really about the fact that art is commercial in its nature, or some art is commercial in its nature. So yeah, like looking around to see what other artists are doing and learning from them is super interesting and helpful.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about your site and platform, because you have a lot of services, and people can go to your site and peruse, a lot of free resources that you have online, as well as you have an 8-day challenge that's free. But what would you like people to just give a little tour, a verbal tour of what, why they should come and what they'll find there?
Sure. Yeah. If you are an artist and you're just getting started and haven't sold anything before, or maybe sold 1 or 2 things but don't really know what to do, I would recommend trying our 8-day challenge. So you head over to theabundantartist.com, and then just right there on the homepage, you click on join the 8-day challenge, and it's a totally free challenge. We'll send you 1 email a day for 8 days with 1 small action that you can take that'll take less than an hour. That you can do to grow your art business and start to make some money. What we find is the people who, if they stick through the challenge, if they all 8 days, probably 1 out of every 4 artists will actually get a sale by doing that. So of course that's, the challenge is actually doing the work each day, and
Right.
you have to step forward and do it. If you are a more experienced artist and you've sold some work and you're trying to figure out how to turn it into a full-time living, we have lots of blogs and articles about various topics, and we also have courses that are designed to help you take your art business full-time. So there's lots of courses you can check out there. Our big initiative right now is called the Abundant Artist Association. And the association is a trade association designed to help artists learn how to sell their work, build a community of artists around them, and also have access to things like group discounts for health insurance and legal advice.
Wow.
Yeah, and you can find out more about that at theabundantartist.com/association. And the community is awesome. We just launched a month ago, and we have just over 200 artists.
Wow.
In the community. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited about it. We're having a really good time. And the challenge that we have right now, today is Thursday. We started our first monthly challenge on Monday. And the challenge is about landing paid commission work.
Nice.
And one of our artists got her first paid commission on Tuesday, so the day after we started.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Awesome.
That's fantastic.
So I'm super excited about it. It's really fun to see everybody be so successful, and I look forward to seeing where it goes.
It's super exciting. We're excited to hear about it because in a way, you're a little bit like what we want to be with iCreateDaily when we grow up, like if we're just starting, and yet like on your site, you talk about, it's like another mindset, belief in abundance. Mm-hmm. Your name, the Abundant Artist. It includes collaboration amongst, associated, competitive, collaborative, as collaborative instead of competitive kind of sites. And, basically and our goal is the same as yours. And that is anything that we can do to uplift the creative artistic community. It's like, a little bit philosophically, we believe that, the world needs more art. It needs more beauty. It needs more people who are creating, because when we're creating, we're not fighting, we're not hating, it's a really positive thing for humanity in general.
Awesome. Well, I so appreciate you all having me on and letting me talk about that a little bit. And I wish you the best of luck with Create Daily. I love seeing artists jump into, 30-day or year-long creation projects. I think there's a lot of momentum to be built when you do it that way.
A lot of confidence that can come, especially if you're somebody who's sort of entering into the arts and you're a little bit hesitant. There's a lot of I woke up for a full month or a full year, however long it is, and I showed up every day, and that skyrockets your confidence in the arts. Yeah.
So your association, anyone can join, or artists can join at any time of the year, right? It's not like a close and open date.
Yeah, we may close enrollment later this year if we grow too much. Like our growth is going really well, and I want to make sure that the community grows at a rate that everybody who comes on board is excited and happy. Right. So if we grow too quickly, we may close enrollment. But for right now, we're at a good clip.
It's fantastic that you incorporated the insurance and the collaboration of the power of the group kind of thing into what you're doing. So very visionary of you.
We'll definitely link all of that in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Well, Cory, thank you so much for taking the time today. Last thing I want to ask you is if you could leave people with one thing, to move forward toward their dream of becoming supporting themselves through their art, and then also another book that you might recommend that is one of your favorites besides your own.
Sure. So Create Daily, go make your work daily, and also market yourself daily.
Yeah.
And if I were going to pick one other book, we talked earlier about mindset, about making sure that you are doing, that you are not getting in your own way with what you think and believe. There's a great book called Mindset by Karen Dweck.
Yeah, it's a favorite.
Great book. I had a lot of conversations about it over the last few weeks with some clients. So highly recommend it. It's a great book.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you mentioned that's one of our favorites. The concept of the learner mindset is so important. Yeah. Awesome. Well, great to connect with you, Cory. Again, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too. Bye. Thanks so much for joining us for the iCreate Daily podcast. Please let us know what creatives you would like us to interview and what topics you would be interested in hearing more about.
And if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review on iTunes. We value your feedback. We read all the reviews, and it just helps us get the word out on the iCreate Daily podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.